друзья, я не ожидал, честно говоря.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, I did not expect to see so many people in this conference hall after the panel discussion that we just had. Nevertheless, I'm happy to see all of you. Thank you so much for coming. Let's give a round of applause to everyone in this room. Thank you for choosing me out of all the other speakers taking the floor simultaneously with me. Well, the organizers asked me to remind you that you can use this QR code. If you scan it, you'll be able to submit your questions to the speaker in the Telegram channel online. Did I get it right? We're not going to be taking questions from the floor. If you want to ask me a question, please submit your question by scanning this QR code. Right, without further ado, let's move on. But let me grab the clicker first.
Поговорим мы с вами сегодня.
Okay, what I'd like to talk to you about is
CISO
how a CISO,
своего профессионального пути
during his or her professional career,
на разных жизненных
act at different life stages within the organization and outside of the organization. I'm not going to be touching upon professional stuff because many presentations will be devoted to that later on. We'll be talking about how to develop paperwork or run tests or solve infrastructure-related issues. What I'll be discussing with you is that CISO, just like any person, faces certain challenges during his or her professional career, and that includes internal issues, soft skills, collaboration with the employees, employers, and based on my personal experience, I'd like to share with you some pieces of advice, how to deal with it, what the attitude should be, and what needs to be done. As for the life cycle of a rank and file employee in any organization, looks just like this. Let's say you undergo a job interview, and you evaluate the job offer, you accept the job offer, then you prepare for going to the job, then you undergo the onboarding, you you learn things, then you adapt for a certain period of time, you have a probation period, you develop skills that the employer wants you to develop. Following that, you start showing the results, develop your career, and so on and so forth. But sooner or later, all the good things tend to end. And for some reason, this person starts looking for alternative options and leaves the company for another one. So my question is, what do you think the life cycle of a good manager differs from that of a rank-and-file employee? Any ideas, any thoughts, bonuses, well, no difference, any other thoughts and ideas? A manager presses other people to work harder, so you're saying that his main job is to put pressure, to put a greater pressure on other people. Well, there is a great cartoon showing what I thought being a manager is like, and what a real job of a boss is. I'm not going to put it up on the screen. Anyway, as HR managers, top HR managers who hunt C-level managers say, a good manager starts looking for a job right after he gets a job. In other words, they are always on the lookout within the life cycle. And everyone is saying that you should not be shy about posting your CV on the Headhunter website or in LinkedIn. You should not be shy about being approached by hunters. You should not be shy about the fact that your current employer might come across your CV. It does not mean that you betray your current employer. And this sense of shame should not exist in the first place, though it is the case, because any employer who sees that his employee that he invested heavily in, and that includes money, effort, and so on and so forth. And if he sees that his CV is in LinkedIn or on the Headhunter website, the first question that comes to mind is he going to betray me? So, based on my personal experience, I can tell you that there were several examples. I'm not talking about myself personally, but rather about my counterparts. An HR manager would tell me, we just hired this person and his CV is already on LinkedIn. Or as soon as I appoint a person, 2 to 3 weeks later, it turns out that he's been promoted and 3 key team members leave the company alone. What would you do if you were me? You would put him in front of a firing squad. Right, negotiations do not help in this case, because if a person wants to leave the company, he or she will do that. And sometimes they make a decision on leaving the company even before they get hired, because for him or her, you are just an intermediary link in the chain. And all they want is a ticked box in their CV. I have some examples like that. A guy was hired and he left the company 3 days later. I asked him, how come? And he said, I wanted my CV showing that I worked for your company. I don't like being employed. I like being a private entrepreneur. I don't know what was the answer that I received, but a good manager, and in our case, that's a CISO, starts looking for another job as soon as they get hired by an employer. And any CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, is professionally deformed, and they are quite cunning. Their cycle does not look like that. It looks like this.
Это не означает, что CISO нужно убить.
It does not mean that we need to kill a CISO, and it doesn't mean that a CISO will be killed in the end. Like I said, they're cunning just like hackers, and they act as hackers would if they want to penetrate an infrastructure of sorts. So stage one is reconnaissance. For a CISO to be hired by a company, what he or she needs to do is as follows. They need to be clear on the organizational structure of the company. Any good CISO would first analyze the organizational structure. If they are clear on the culture, that's also good, because if the previous employer is a public company focusing on compliance, and if he leaves the state-owned company for a fintech where guys have smoothies all day long, these are different requirements. We also need to focus both on the needs of the CISO and the needs of the company, which might be just the opposite. A person who gets hired might believe that the needs of a company is to comply with this or that requirement, but in reality, the task facing the company is to make sure that no one remembers about it in the market. The needs of the CISO seeking the job should be aligned with the needs of the company. He wants a salary of $10 million per month, and the company is prepared to give him a salary of 10,000 rubles. Right, so these are the things that you should pay attention to. And any person seeking a job, and this is especially true for the managers, because the cost of a mistake made by a manager is extremely high. Stage 2 is expertise. And these 3 things, expertise, experience, and knowledge, are elements of a sum total. Even your current employees who want to develop their career sometimes cannot answer these questions. What are they expert in? What is their professional experience? And what additional skills they need to acquire to become experts. Ask your own self or a college student. I teach in the Bauman University, and this is what I start my program with. Try to explain to me what you're an expert in, what are your skills, and what can you do as a professional. Very few people can take that question. So, in terms of weaponization, you need to answer these 3 questions before you post your CV online. And your CV should include these things. Well, the remuneration is a clear point. It's difficult for me to talk to an employer about the remuneration. I don't like discussing salary, my salary, or the money I want to get. When I get this question, what your remuneration should be, 10 million US bucks per month. That's what I'd like to get in terms of remuneration. But of course, I understand that no one is prepared to pay that much money to me, and I wouldn't agree to a lesser salary. And then we start haggling. You know, every company has a grading system, and you are hired to a job of a specific grade. So the easiest way is to ask, what's the current grade for this job? And you're going to get an answer. And, not to offend anyone, you might say, I want the average, the median value out of this range. So I will not be offended. You're not going to be offended. If you strike an agreement on that, that means that you sold your expertise, experience, and knowledge for a specific remuneration that the company is willing to pay. The next stage is delivery. Let's say you get a job offer. Or several job offers. How do you select? How do you choose the best option, the best offer? And it's always a problem. I get approached by my students who ask me, Sergey, how do I select an offer out of 3 options? Well, I'm talking about managers, not just necessarily college students. So their question is, how do I make the right choice and how do I not make a mistake? Well, my answer to them is go to a company that you're going to be happy in. If you are an expert on app security and you know what the organization structure is, if your experience is sufficient enough, go to that company, use your gut feeling. If you feel happy in the company, seek a job there. Leaving a previous job is also a problem because you have to inform your boss about that, and it's a totally different matter if you have to go to a CEO if you are already a CISO, and if you say that I'm gonna leave the company, it always creates certain problems, psychological tensions and challenges, both for your own self, because you don't want to fail the people, unless, of course, you leave the company because you're sick and tired of everyone there. And, your boss had some expectations towards you, but, life is life. And even people who have been in a marriage for 20 years might seek a divorce. Life is life, and a job is a job. You only have one life. You want to develop your career, and you don't have to stay at work 24/7. Though it often happens to CISOs. Right. To sum up, it's quite a complicated psychological experiment to tell your boss that you're leaving his company for another one because you don't like it here, or oftentimes you get promoted to a different company because you're not being offered a promotion here. Signing a job contract. Please raise your hand if your job offer stated one thing and your job contract stated a different thing. Please raise your hand if it ever was the case with you. Actually, that happens quite often. You get a job offer that states certain conditions and facts and figures, but a job contract states a totally different thing. It could, the reasons are quite clear. You might not have been informed about certain things, or you were told a totally different thing because companies misunderstand certain things themselves. The way out is quite simple. Jointly with the job offer, you should also get a draft job contract, and that would eliminate all these problems looking forward. And it's way better for you to sign the job contract before you are actually put in your job. And during the induction, you will have less psychological stress. It's much worse if you read the job contract only after you get hired. Right, training or induction. As a rule, managers with much experience, much previous experience, believe that they know everything, they are proficient in everything. This is not true. Take my word for it. I guarantee you that each and every time when you join a new company, and this is based on my personal experience, sometimes I realize that my previous experience is totally irrelevant in this particular company. Even the expectations do not coincide with what I learned from the open sources or from what I learned by talking to other people. Everything is totally different, and you have to learn things from the scratch. Of course, you would need to learn how to use the in-house systems or how to align with the corporate culture, but you would need to learn how to survive in a different environment. It's always a challenge. It's always a challenge. It's not comfortable, and it will have an impact on your professional actions. As for meeting the team, well, based on my experience, I can tell you that onboarding is a long process. You get a long list of people you have to talk to. So you talk to them, you get an impression, you hear out the problems that they come across, as well as their expectations to you, and you get a 10-meter long list of expectations, hopes, failed expectations left over by the predecessor. And, much effort is wasted on processing the expectations. And it's a huge task because we're talking about informal agenda. Before that, I was talking about the formal agenda. But like I said, any company has a formal agenda, such as making a profit, launching an IPO, and so on and so forth. But every single boss, CFO, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Information Officer, CDTO, HRD, all of them have their own informal agendas that they will share with you during such informal meetings. And you have to align yourself both with formal and informal objectives. So these meetings help you get enough data to understand the informal environment in the company. The next stage is installation. By the way, this chain is similar for everyone, but CISO, who comes from an outside company, progresses through the first 4 bullets, while the in-house CISO jumps right to bullet 5, though sometimes he or she may have to go back to bullet 4. So the goals that you identify during stage 4 should evolve into a strategy of sorts. You have to develop the strategy quite quickly because there is no time, and you have to start implementing reforms as fast as possible. Reforms are a separate issue, especially if you realize that the previous teams, for some reasons, were unable to implement your strategy. What do you do in this case? You need to fire people. And this is what we call genocide, industrial genocide. Sometimes you have to fire everyone. Have you ever experienced that when the entire team had to be fired? Well, sometimes people get sacked, all of them, especially if there are informal leaders in the team that get stuck and anchored to the previous managers who start saying that you don't understand a thing about the company. What was it again? Right. Some people say that the predecessor was a better manager and so on and so forth. But sometimes you have to engage in the industrial genocide without hurting people's feelings. So reform is not about firing people alone. Firing people is the most extreme action. Sometimes you have to train people. There is a great movie named Ted Lasso. This guy goes to European soccer club, and he says, you know, we have everything to achieve our goals. And the soccer team was a total failure, so he retrained all the footballers. And I believe that it's a great example. I believe that everything should be done like they do in the armed forces. You get a company, you're the company commander, CEO, and you have to win a battle with this particular company. So I believe that you have to invest in the people, train them, and then try to implement the reforms with the best team members. Those who are lagging behind will leave the company on their own accord. And budget is a huge headache. When you develop the strategy, when you start implementing the reforms, it will turn out that the company has no budget to implement the strategy. Without implementing the strategy, you won't be able to meet the goals that you were assigned when you were hired. So ultimately, you would go to the top managers and say, you know, ladies and gentlemen, you hired me so that I do this, and that. I developed the strategy, I analyzed the goals, but unfortunately, no budget was allocated to me, so I cannot deliver on my promises. Right? It's not a good story. What do we do? The greatest problem is to admit that your expectations were not met and start everything from the scratch so that all the expectations are aligned. This is the way to go because, you know, being frank and sincere works all the time. The worst thing to do would be to sweep it under the rug at the start. Right. The next stage is named command and control. And, you know, routine tasks start exerting too much pressure on any chief information security officer. It becomes an obstacle to developing the team. It prevents you from thinking out of a box. It prevents you from, what else? Give me a hint. What was it? Right, it prevents you from making decisions. And this is a huge headache that prevents any manager from doing his or her job, which boils down to two things. The first one is to be able to ask the right questions, and the second one is to make decisions. This is what any manager gets paid for. If a manager does not do that or is inefficient in doing that, that means that he or she is not a good manager. And the second most important problem, from my viewpoint, is staff. And, you know, staff start undermining the activities of any manager. You know, what you don't want is too many idle team members. There are different views on that. Some coaches and personal development trainers say that you should never be friends with your subordinates. But what if you hire your friend? Should you unfriend him or her? Some coaches say that you should be friendly with your employees, but what if your subordinate underperforms and you need to replace him or her? How do we strike the balance? The answer is I have no clue. I don't know. uh,
У меня были случаи, когда мне
you
приходилось
have to act
расставаться с
on
людьми,
a
которые были
pers-
хорошими
on a
профессионалами,
personal
но по
basis.
внутренним
Sometimes I had
чувствам
to
ну,
fire
коллектив
excellent
отвергал. Бывали случаи,
professionals,
когда мне
but
приходилось
who
расставаться
lacked
с людьми,
personal
которые были,
skills. Sometimes I had
приходилось
to
оставлять
sack.
людей, когда
I had
человек
to
очень хорошо
retain
мотивировал
people
команду, был таким
who
неформальным лидером,
motivated
хорошим
the
слушателем, при
team.
этом
They acted
технологически
as
тянул какие-то
informal
вещи.
leaders, despite the fact that
Здесь очень важно
they
понимать,
lacked
как
some
проверить
technical skills.
конкретного
So
человека.
you
Человек
have
для
to
нас, для
be
руководителя, это
clear
всего инструмент для достижения целей, как бы
on
цинично это ни
how you're
звучало.
going to use
Нужно
a
понимать, как
specific person,
команда
because for us
будет
as
реагировать
managers,
на
people are just tools, and you have to be clear on
каждого
how a
конкретного
team is going to
персонажа из них.
respond
Помимо
to
нагрузки,
one or
ребята,
other team member leaving the team.
руководителям платят
And,
большие деньги, потому что
stress.
они работают
Managers get paid
10% рабочего времени.
because
Никто
they
большие деньги
work
руководству
24/7.
платить не будет. Ну, если
No
это
one would
какой-то
pay you a
человек,
high salary unless you do that,
сам по себе
or
достаточно ценный для организации.
unless you are a
Руководитель
valuable
— это
employee for the
лошадь.
company. A
Он может быть,
manager is a
естественно,
working horse,
а
and
CISO, как значит, той лошади на свадьбе, да, голова должна всегда быть в цветах, а
and a
задняя часть
horse
всегда в грязи. Поэтому
should
очень большая
work
нагрузка, и мы,
24/7,
как люди, если
which
вдруг
means
кто-то
that
хочет быть CISO,
the
в столичной
workload is going to be
компании
huge.
всегда
And
должны
if
быть
you want to
готовы к
be
тому,
a
что эта
CISO in a
нагрузка
large
придется
company, you should be
переваривать не
prepared
только
for
вам,
coping
но и
with
вашим
a very
близким, вашей
high
семье,
workload. And this
вашим
is true not
друзьям,
just for
вашим
yourself, but
детям, не
for
знаю,
your
животным, кому
family
угодно.
members, your
Придется
kids,
жертвовать там
your pets,
иногда
you name it.
хобби, там, какими-то
Oftentimes, you would have to
поездками,
sacrifice
отпусками и
your
так далее, и так далее.
hobbies or
То есть к этому вы
vacations
должны быть готовы.
just to do your job. You have to be prepared for that. Let's move on. The next stage
Хотелось бы, конечно, поговорить про
is
выгорание.
as follows. Well, burnout.
Испытывал или испытываете
Please raise your
выгорание в настоящий
hand
момент,
if you are burnt out in your current
Есть
job.
люди, да, которые подняли руку.
There are
Спасибо
people in
вам
this room
большое.
who raised
Я очень
their
респектую,
hands.
потому
Thank you
что
so
я
much for that.
сейчас
I'm no longer
выгорел.
burnt out because,
Я выгорел, да.
I've been
Да,
burnt
но
out
тем
for a
не
very
менее,
long
друзья,
time.
это очень страшная штука.
Anyway,
Выгорание
this is
опасно,
a
знаете,
scary thing,
тем,
though.
что оно может свалить вас в
Being
глубокую
burnt out is
депрессию.
dangerous
Депрессия —
because
это
you might
психологический
be
диагноз, с
severely
которым тоже
depressed,
нужно
which is a
поработать.
clinical
Поэтому
diagnosis
очень
that you
важно
have to
слушать
seek
самих
treatment
себя,
for. So you need to be
чтобы
able
этого не
to
допустить.
listen to your own self to
Что
prevent it in the first place.
Что этому можно противопоставить в компании? Это, конечно,
What be
достижение результата и
counter
саморазвитие. Про это мы чуть больше поговорим. Ну и цель,
counter tool
конечно,
for that,
которая вы
reaching the
достигаете
results
в
in
результате вашей
self-development.
деятельности, которую
Well,
вы
because if you achieve the goals that you specified in the strategy in the first place, you feel happy, and that prevents burnout. Post-exploitation and cleanup. That's the next stage. Hackers, after they hack a system, usually clean up their footprints. However, you as a CISO cannot clean up your presence in the company. Even if you decide to leave the company, your team will stay behind. Some relations will still be maintained, and it's good to keep up the relations. So, what could be the cause? Misaligned expectations. For instance, your expectations were different from what the company is. Secondly, you're out of envelopes. I hope you know the jokes about the envelopes. Actually, it's not a joke. Any manager who joins any company gets the 3 envelopes, as in the joke. The only question is how soon you will start opening them up. Based on my experience, I opened envelope 1 a week after I joined the company. But after you're out of the envelopes, much would depend on the relations with your boss.
Вы понимаете, что CISO — это не мое. Такое тоже бывает.
You understand that being a CISO is not your job, it's not for you. You are too pressed by the routine. You are in one spot, but you wanted to go to conferences and business trips. It's important to understand that this is possibly not your job or not your boss. Not every manager can be a manager. So it's important to have alternatives. Know where you go before leaving. Each and every stage of those is accompanied
Давайте про них поговорим.
by some specific difficulties.
Значит,
Let's talk
первая
about them.
трудность, вот я буду
first
по одной
difficulty,
трудности рассказывать.
and I will be,
Первая трудность,
mentioning them
как
one
я
by
говорил
one.
уже сегодня, это размытие
First one
термина CISO.
is the
В каждой компании
borders and the
начальник, который
definitions
отвечает
of
за
the
информационную
CISO
безопасность, это
are very
твой
blurred.
начальник.
In each and every company, the CISO is a specific function that doesn't look like everything else. But if you look at Headhunter, they call the CISO everybody. You look through the requirements and you see like, people are looking for the boss who's doing strategy, is able to set goals and manage people, usually one person,
VPN, VIPNet, там чего-нибудь.
and is able to
Зарплата 100 тысяч рублей.
manage
Написано
VPN.
в заголовке CISO.
And
Я ради
the
прикола как бы
salary is
делал
100,000
резюме, я
rupees.
люблю такие
Just to have fun,
эксперименты, и в эту компанию
I like those
отправил.
experiments. I
Резюме, понятно,
you know,
как это,
took my
подходящее.
resume and modified it to match the role and then sent it to the company and asked the recruiter, because she, of course, approached me and asked her, why do you call the position the CISO? And she said, just look at the look. Everybody calls it CISO. So that's why we did it. So first of all, the CISO should be a person reporting directly to the CEO of the company. If you are not reporting to the first person, then you're, cybersecurity lead or cybersecurity team lead, but you're not the CISO. Next, the biggest problem here is this one.
Когда начинаешь общаться с компанией,
When you start talking to a company,
ладно, там культурно не
it doesn't matter what happened to the previous
Самое
manager,
главное — это нечеткие цели и образ результата.
but
Я
having
хочу того, не знаю, чего хочу.
non-defined goal and no image of the result, no vision of the result is the worst. No image will help. Whatever you bring to the table, it will not be what was wanted. You won't be able to agree on something. So it's super important to pay attention to this. So if the discussions you are having lack this vision,
это сигнал.
or you see some strange story about what we want to achieve,
Самая
that's the
большая
signal.
проблема, ребята,
Next.
на фазе
The most important issue in this phase
сомнения в правильности выбора.
is this one, number 4, doubts about the correctness of your choice. Maybe I should not leave this company. Maybe I should choose some other offer. Why did I come here? And those questions that actually worry everybody, including myself, they do happen. But what should we do here? If you committed to something, do it.
Закусил у дела и...
You said you're gonna make it. Make it.
Это самая большая проблема, ребята, с этим нужно работать.
So this is a
Самая
big
большая
problem.
проблема на этом
You need to
этапе.
work with that. Next stage.
Какая?
The biggest issue is which one?
Не, ребята. Самая большая проблема, перегрузка информации важно, да.
The most important one is the problem number 5.
Приходите в компанию,
You come to the company.
компания считает, что сделала вам одолжение и позвала к себе такого как
They think
человека
they
с
honored
определенными
you
недостатками, с
with,
которыми она собралась мириться, для того, чтобы вы
promoting
дали быстрый
you,
результат.
taking you to the position
И
to
вы, значит, такие...
drive a fast result. And you
Сейчас я
are
все сделаю, а у вас быстрого результата не получается. По разным
willing
причинам.
to make it happen, but the fast result isn't coming for different reasons, because the processes are not as fast as your
Выделять столько ресурсов, сколько вам надо для достижения быстрых результатов.
as you used to, because the resources are not there, or just because the company is not ready for the results, because they need a deeper transformation of everything to get just any result. And the manager
Расскажи, где результат, где там то.
calls you up every week asking, what's the result? What have you done? What have you achieved? And of course, this frustrates you a lot. You send your frustration to the team, and the team starts to hate you quietly. If they are,
А если это новый коллектив, который только что вы взяли?
old-timers who you can
Проблема.
replace, but if not, then there's an issue. Another round of firings, people whom you hired, you are responsible, like Exupery said, you're responsible for them, becoming successful, so you cannot just fire everybody twice. So what should we do here? The answer is quite simple. You need to prepare those results beforehand and discuss them with the boss hiring you, asking what is the timeline, what is the result you are expecting. At least the boss will be able to understand that the results imagined by him or her are not achievable super fast. If you are not managing those expectations, the issue will arise definitely.
Друзья мои, на этапе
Next.
адаптации самая большая проблема для меня лично
In the adaptation stage, the biggest issue for me, is
недостаток обратной связи.
lack of feedback.
Как правило, к вам приходят, что-то все
Usually,
говорят, там, вы начинаете что-то самое, и, в общем, вам нужен
People come to you, people talk to you, and you need someone.
У ваших сотрудников, которых вы нанимаете, там есть такая практика в организации, есть бадди, да, который вас там берет.
Usually, there's a body in the organization who will be accompanying him or her, showing different things, where you can have some rest, drink some coffee, do some work, if you wish. And here is the cafe.
Может вполне себе не быть.
But often,
По какой причине?
there's no such person. Why?
Руководитель
You're a new boss, your new top manager. Who can be your buddy?
Какой-то HR-бизнес-партнера, который закреплен.
Good if they give you
Хотя бы что-то
an HR business
что
partner
происходит.
for your function
Но очень
to
часто такого просто
help
не
you
бывает.
and tell you
Поэтому
what's
вы,
going on.
как одинокий
But
этот самый,
oftentimes, there's not even that. So you are lonely,
привести, как одинокий человек, ходите по
lonely
организации
person,
и как бы
walking around the
хотите
organization and,
разобраться.
asking for help.
Помогите.
I know this, I know that, but
Очень
I don't
важно
know
найти такого человека всегда,
this thing.
который вас будет
So it's
сопровождать.
important to
Для меня
find
очень
such a
часто
person.
это CIO.
And for me,
Безопасник,
it's
прихожу в
most
компанию,
often it's the CIO. As a security guy, I try to,
директором по ИТ,
ensure connection
еще
with
до того,
the
как я пришел,
CIO,
начинаю
IT
просить,
director,
мужик,
and
помоги.
ask him to, even sometimes before my official first day, I am starting to ask him for help.
Самая главная проблема.
Execution.
Пятый.
What's the biggest issue here? Number 5.
Что-то у всех разное. Для меня, ребята, самая большая история это вот это.
Well, they're different for everybody, but the biggest story for me is this one.
Нет, это не про эту историю. Смотрите, каждый человек
No, not this one.
иметь право
Everybody
на 5
should have the right for 5 minutes of
тогда, когда он
fame.
что-то достигает.
when
Это
he or she achieves something.
исходит от внутреннего эгоизма, любого
This is
человека.
just
вообще.
internal,
У каждого он есть.
egoism.
Просто раздут вот до непомерных масштабов.
Some would have a huge ego, some would have a small one, but it depends.
Характер, да, и как человек к этому пришел, к руководству. Но тем не менее, очень важно каждому человеку...
Depends on the character, it depends on the background, but everybody should have their 5 minutes of fame.
Вообще ничего не дают.
And you are not given them. You are not
Иди еще
given
работай, всё,
anything.
что ты сделал там не то, не
Whatever
так, и
you
вот это все приводит
have
к
done is not yet efficient, and this leads to
пункту
this,
номер 3.
to devaluing of your results. Everything that you thought is valuable for the company
По разным причинам.
could
Поменялась стратегия,
have zero value for different reasons. Change of strategy, change of management,
поменялся там, не знаю, мир
change of
вокруг. И это
the
вполне
world
возможно,
around you.
что случается такая тема,
And
результат, который
oftentimes
вы приносите как CISO, вообще
you would
нерелевантен.
see
И все, что вы делаете,
result
превращается в тыку.
that you have
У меня есть очень много у меня есть
as a CISO
знакомых,
becoming not valid, becoming not
столкнулись с
useful
этой
for the
штукой, и
company
которых именно
or
этот
not
аспект
not
привел к
valued
уходу
by
из
the
компании.
company.
Переход на
And
более
that would
спокойную
lead
должность,
to change of roles, change of companies, or
результат,
going
который они думали, является
on a
ценным,
cruise ship around the world,
оказался вообще не результат.
because the
Ну
result that
и
they showed
здесь самая большая проблема.
was found out not to be a result that was desired, or not to be a result at all
Для
in the
меня
eyes
самая
of the
большая
company.
проблема
So the biggest issue for me is number 5. When you decide to leave the company, it's good to have an offer. Usually, when you decide to leave the company, it triggers your uncertainty about what lies ahead. And it's okay, no one knows what's gonna happen in the future. But this usually creates a lot of doubt, creates a lot of stress and questions. So there's not many people who would be able to withstand that. And the manager's maturity is very much defined by how well he or she manages through that number 5. What should we do with everything, and especially the point number 5? I have a couple of advice. Do you have questions? Know the context of your employer. Know where you are going to avoid surprises. Very important. Not every manager of the company, not every CEO knows how to manage the security people. Because managing security and managing security people are two completely different tasks. You can have a menu like Sergey Demidov. You can have presentation skills like many others. Use those tools to ensure that your manager is able to manage you. In English, it's called manage the manager. Always act for the future. You know something happens in September. Start preparing 2 months before. You have a meeting, an important meeting tomorrow. Okay, gather a preparation meeting before. So come prepared to everything that you can. There's no problem saying, please help. I don't know what's going on. Just ask for help. Don't be shy asking for help. It's much worse if you keep hiding the fact that you don't know something and then you make mistakes. So invest in the relationships. We are protecting people. We are managers. We manage our people. The most important thing for any company, for any place, is the relationships. Invest in them, create them, build them, because good relationships, even if you leave the company, would be there, and it's immensely important. The dialogue is super important. Use all the possible tools to work with your colleagues and your managers, and don't neglect any of them. One more thing, don't lie to yourself, and don't let other people lie to you, and don't lie to everybody else. How do you cure that? How do you solve that? Each and every thought, each and every idea that is brought to you should be confirmed by numbers, by experiment, something that people can take as a confirmation of issues, words, problems. This is immensely important. Say again. Change of shoes? What do you mean? Changing your attitude. Okay, yeah. I will follow this up in Q&A. Each and every manager should prepare someone to succeed him. That's a super important thing. After you will leave the company, you need to prepare someone. Be visible, be available, talk to the community, go to the conferences. Because if you don't do that, you are being forgotten. And the most important thing is take care about yourself. Know that work is just work. It has its beginning, it has its end, and your life is much longer than everything else. Pay attention to yourself. Manage your health. If your current work does not improve your health, you need to do something either with your job or with yourself. Thank you.